Our next session will be delivered by our headline sponsor, AWS. You're about to hear firsthand how AWS powers exceptional customer experiences through Gen AI and machine learning retail content creation. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage Aparna Galiaso.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aparna Galiaso. I lead our retail and CPG business development group at Amazon Web Services, looking after all of our customers in North America. So first of all, I'll start with thank you for your time, for being here. I realize we're getting close to the lunch hour, so I'll try and keep this interesting. As we've been working in AWS with a lot of our customers in retail and CPG, most of our discussions nowadays are about what does that next generation of customer experience look like? And what can brands and retailers do to interact with consumers in new differentiated ways and in the ways in which consumers expect to be interacted with? That in itself is changing at rapid pace. What consumers thought was appropriate in terms of how often they receive personalized content, how often they were spoken to with a message that felt like it knew something about them already, that paradigm has changed. Consumers are more willing to share more information about themselves, but then they're expecting in return information from brands and retailers that is more personalized to them. And the core of personalization, whoever does it, does come down to content. So a lot of our discussions end up starting with content as the baseline for which then brands and retailers are using AI, ML, Gen AI to innovate. I'll use examples from Amazon just to start us off thinking about what the art of the possible is with content. Very many times in my job, I get asked, well, that's great. At Amazon's scale, everything is possible. Think of it as a way to think about how it can then apply to you, right? There are things that may not make sense, and there are things that definitely will. So I had that slide up there just to talk very quickly about the fact that Amazon has been at this for 25 years. And some of the things that have defined what innovation in content has been has come from the Amazon retail experience. Product reviews, for example. We were the first to put them on the website, good, bad, ugly, as a way to build trust with consumers. Same way as we think about what the dash card is, and this concept of being able to bring specific interactions with consumers on a screen while they're in a physical shopping experience. And for us at Amazon, sort of the thing that drives all innovation is what was infamously drawn on the back of a napkin and that you see behind me here. It is our flywheel of growth. And this idea that if you serve core consumer needs, durable consumer needs that do not change over time, you will always be on this cycle of growth and innovation. So for us, right, and for every business, this changes somewhat. But for us, it's really no one's ever going to want something that's more expensive, that gets to them slower, or that they have less choice on. And so that flywheel is all about focusing on how we drive that. How do we drive better information on price comparisons? How do we drive better understanding on speed to delivery, and how do we create an environment in which both consumers and sellers want to participate to create the selection that Amazon.com has. Now, if I go from here, now getting into CX. So we've been innovating in CX for a very long time. These examples that you see up here are what we were doing in CX 10 years ago. And we were really starting to use technologies like View in 3D, View in your room, you see virtual try-on 10 years ago. One of the things that we were very precise on is how do you use different technologies and different ways of exposing products to consumers in different categories in nuanced aspects. So we didn't use virtual 3D in all product categories. It was only specific product categories. View in your room, I don't know if any of you caught it there. The example is of a mouse on a table. And surprisingly enough, that led to a 3 times conversion lift on mice. People really want to see the mice they buy on their tables. This was a product category segment decision individually made at each segment to help drive growth. Now, from then, I remember coming back from mat leave 2 years ago, and all of a sudden everyone was talking about Gen AI. And I was like, what was this thing that I missed out when I was feeding a baby for 4 months? Turns out, at that time, when 2 years ago everyone was starting to think about how do we start using Gen AI, and everyone was using it more sort of, and when I say everyone, I'm really always speaking about retailers and brands. It's the only world I live and breathe. The companies were using it more sort of back of the house, using it to drive productivity within their own four walls, if you will, less willing to expose it to the end consumer, fearing, of course, that they would not know the technology well enough and erode the consumer trust that they have. At that time, Amazon was in market with a series of Gen AI innovations that were consumer-facing. Of course, given the business that Amazon is in and what we sort of hold as an important marker of success, we focus them on search and discovery. And how can you get into search and discovery without eroding consumer trust? So we started actually, while you would all think, several of you who probably use Amazon would think it's around our product review summarization, the first sort of Gen AI and AI-related innovation that we put out there was Amazon Lens. And Amazon Lens is essentially visual search. You can snap up a picture and use that to then drive the discovery of a product that might be an exact match or a close match to what you're looking for. Of course, that is a trend that as the generations move through the buying pattern, and the younger generations do prefer a more visual search experience. With Amazon Lens, too, we started with that. And then as Gen AI sort of grew and expanded, it became more about how do we make this a multimodal search? How do you take a picture of something and say it's a green jacket, and take that green jacket and ask instead, saying, type in text after you have that picture, I actually want a red one in that style. So we started bringing that into the search experience, and then Rufus actually took that to the next level. And right now, I think some of you may have seen this or already been using it in your app. You're able to sort of use your video camera and pan through whatever environment you're in to have the search results pop up automatically real time. So we've moved to video-based search. Customer reviews was the second piece. I don't think I'll have to explain much there. I mean, one of the reasons I shop on Amazon on some of those obscure product categories is so I can quickly read what thousands of other people are saying about it. And in the past, I did spend 30 minutes looking up what some of the specific nuances are in the feedback that people have been giving on products. And so the first thing we did was, how do we take all that content that's on there and make it easier for people to digest without eroding their trust? Because it's very easy to say generated by AI and summarized. And as long as the value of what you're providing is high enough for consumers to accept the fact that you're experimenting and still learning as you go along, turns out no trust was eroded. And now it's become one of the most requested things that we're building with other retailers, product summarization. For other retailers, though, I would say, it's not only summarizing, doing product summaries so that you can show it to your end consumer. Very many times we're seeing retailers build this capability or work with their partners to build this capability primarily to be able to surface all those insights to their merchants on understanding, like, is there a problem with packaging on a product that keeps on coming up in reviews? And should they have a conversation with their suppliers around it? Are they fundamentally missing a color swatch on a fast fashion product in certain categories? Finally, we have Rufus. So everyone's now looking at conversational assistants, and we've been building a lot. And the thing about Rufus that made it a good move for us was the fact that we have access, again, to a lot of content, the largest repository of product data in the world, you would argue. And having a conversational chatbot that allows you to make informed recommendations, answer questions that consumers are asking in more nuanced ways, because it can see all of this, all of the information on every single product detail page, all of those reviews, all of the community Q&A, and also go out there and look across the internet to see and learn insights about that category, about that product, and bringing that all to that consumer in a way that they can consume it at the rate and speed at which they want to. And so that's the one thing we've learned about all of our experiments with Rufus, and as we've been building conversational chatbots for other customers. In certain categories, the paradigm of consumers is just like, they're not quite there yet to accept that experience. I think with some of our customers who were more in the space of, you could call it experiences and wellness and health, there was this, we're still working to establish the fact that you could have something that's like a machine talking back to you and build that trust in the recommendations it's giving you. In other categories where it's more about discovery and matching to a consumer need with a product, like in beauty, we're seeing conversational chatbots be very successful because it shortens the cycle of discovery for a consumer. So moving on from that, that's where we started. And so where are we now? We continue to then have GenAI innovations across the customer experience. And all of them arguably are powered by content. That's like the common theme across, right? The first one here, I will talk in more detail. It's the idea of how we're allowing for all the sellers on Amazon.com to use our GenAI tools to enhance their listings. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. The second one is on personalized recommendations. I don't know if any of you may have noticed this yet, but based off of what a consumer is searching, you can update the product detail page live to show some of the things that they're searching for. So in this really tiny little example there, which I also realize looks blurry up there, the consumer searched for a table for two. And so how can you dynamically update a product detail page that has somewhere in the page the dimensions that set up the fact that the table could work for two, and surface it into the copy on the top, which says table for two, to make it easier to match the consumer's search to a product that you are nudging them towards. The third part of this is the newest. It's still in beta, but I'm sure all of you are seeing it everywhere. Many of you might have already moved from more traditional search engines to starting your searches on Perplexity or other platforms that are answer engines. We're seeing a lot more demand coming from answer engines and having more agent-optimized commerce. So Amazon did Buy For Me. Some of you may have seen some of these experiences. This allows us essentially to expand the assortment and the merchandise available for Amazon shoppers without ever having to leave Amazon.com. If someone's shopping for something that is not available on Amazon, they're able to easily sort of click through and be led by an agent through a buying experience, a full search, discovery, buying experience off the platform without ever having to leave the platform. So I wanted to do that just to share a couple of the things that Amazon is doing across the different parts of the consumer's shopping journey. So I showed you a couple on the content side, basically the education and inspiration part of the journey. Then there's pieces on search and discovery, which is where we actually started most of our innovations. And you also see the largest quantity of innovations are in that space. And then checkout as well, right? Buy For Me and the ability to check out without ever having to leave the app with an agent acting autonomously on part of you. That's sort of our foray into that space. I'll dive a little bit deeper into these content ones and share a little bit more about what's happening, a little bit more on the stats, since we're talking about content today. So the first one is, we call it A+ content. I'm going to go to this view of it. Enhance my listing. So this is what I alluded to earlier, the ability for every seller to be able to upload, whatever haphazard information they may have on their products. And remember, we work with a very long tail of sellers, so some of them do have very haphazard content available on their products. But take whatever they have and quickly start to use GenAI to enhance that listing, generate the product details, even expand to photos and videos, and have all of the dimensions, all of the tagging done for you. And what it turns out is when you look across where all of the sellers who've been exposed to this, 90% of sellers are accepting the updates from Enhance My Listing with little or no changes. And what that's doing is based off of, again, I heard the discussion before, you could argue metrics till the end of time. So take this as directional, but a 40% improvement in the quality of a product detail page, the way we measure quality of the page. So result is your consumers are able to find the product quicker, Search is better because everything is indexed better and quicker. And there's just an immense amount of time savings in getting these products out there. There's also a lot of consistency created in the category. So you're able to create cross-category insights in a better way, which helps us as a retailer and helps retailers in general. So there's this whole piece on if you get it right on the front end of when you're getting product onto the platform, and you tag your content well at that time, you tag your products appropriately, then that creates a whole lot of benefits in the sales cycle. It actually is also really helpful for brands. So we do a lot of partnerships where we work with the retailer and a specific brand and bring it into some sort of three-way collaboration, if you will. And very many times, especially in fashion and apparel, you are sort of always trying to look around corners and figure out what are the trends that are upcoming, and what should your next sort of season look like. And one thing that's very helpful for that is to be able to look at all of your past trends, all of the trends out there, and quickly index to understand what are the things that are important to build your next season around. And having better product tagging and all the information that you're putting out there in your current seasons, and then being able to retroactively look at your database and say, hey, as a brand, I have put all of these fashions out in the past 20 years. What sold, what didn't, what do I bring back, what can I mount a campaign around? All of that has become much easier, the analysis of that, because we're able to just level set everything and bring it up a notch in terms of understanding a product in a way that a machine can read it. Let's talk about the other seller-focused content innovation that we're doing as part of Amazon. And we've built this capability for several other retailers. So Mercado Libre, for anyone who's in the Latin American market, their platform is also based off of Amazon Web Services, and they do exactly the same thing. Let's see if I can play this video. There we go. So while this video is playing, essentially offering your sellers a tool where they can take static, flat images in whatever format they have and start to play with a intuitive UI to create more dynamic ads. You can start to do the kind of in-painting, out-painting, all the things that in the past our brands were paying agencies to do. You can start to experiment with that more live. One of the things that we're seeing with a very big return in terms of conversion is simply creating slight motion in the background of videos of product. It makes consumers apparently feel like they're more in the moment with the product that they're buying. So that's one thing that we have made available as part of the product suite for all sellers on Amazon. I think a couple of things on this one, right? As we think about hyper-personalization and where the market is going in terms of expectations on that, in the past, we were having all of these conversations about personalizing to a market of one, like I am one human, you personalize to me. What we've realized is that the true paradigm is consumers are inherently dichotomous creatures. We, at different times, have different needs. And at one point, I may really want to chow down on an ice cream, and at another point, I may want to go run a marathon. And those things, like this weekend, can exist at the same time. And so how do we get to a consumer in their need state? How do we personalize to a need state? Two things need to happen for that. One, you need to have better, more advanced personalization algorithms. The second thing that needs to happen is you actually need to serve up these consumers with more compelling messages that are very hyper-focused on that specific experience. That's where technologies like this that allow you to use Gen AI to just create more content and then serve it up in the right sort of moments that matter in a consumer's journey have become really, really important. We're fundamentally saying that when you think about hyper-personalization, that is the price of entry. It's not just personalizing across 3-4 points in the journey, but allowing for personalization across more points and with more customized content, creating just a numerous, an exponential growth in the number of combinations you can have that make something feel personal to a consumer. Now I'll talk about two seller side content plays that we've done to help our sellers sell better, because I'll refer you back to that flywheel. The flywheel doesn't work if sellers aren't happy and consumers aren't happy, right? We need sellers on the platform to perform well and continue to put more products on the platform. It's the core model. To that end, we launched Amelia. It's basically a knowledge base. It's the internal knowledge base on all seller activity, all of the data of all sales on Amazon, and exposing that with, of course, the right guardrails and controls to sellers for them to be able to query it, to ask questions like, what was my highest selling products? What are the trends in the category? What should I think about selling next? What are some good partnerships for me to consider in terms of other products that are selling in this category? This allows for sellers to have a building conversation to better understand their own category so that they can be more effective as sellers and then drive more volume on Amazon. This kind of seller support, which essentially is you exposing an internal knowledge base with a chatbot on top to your customers, we've been building that for several other retailers as well, just because it's kind of arguably a win-win situation. If sellers win on a platform in a marketplace, everyone wins. Consumer wins, seller wins, retailer wins. So that's been a focus for us on sellers. That's where we started. Now, this is the latest one, and this actually was news to me as of 2 days ago. I didn't know this existed, but there is this platform in which sellers can go get more insights on what their products are selling like. We've recently introduced 2 different parts of it, that niche insights part and the part on the top, which has like niche details, essentially an unmet market demand. So we're essentially using AI and ML to pull out trends, not on the things that are selling, but what are the white spaces of things that are not selling, and surfacing those insights to the right sellers in that category, saying, hey, here's the unmet demand for this kind of product that's similar to what you are. Should you think about expanding into that space? So we're still experimenting with that. That's pretty new, but that's truly trying to get into the space where we can become trusted advisors with our sellers by using all of the information that we have on what's selling on Amazon and what we can see from the external marketplace to help understand and almost forecast consumer demand and where it's headed. So that's kind of the piece that I wanted to talk to you about in terms of what we're doing from a content perspective. I did want to spend a couple of moments to talk about what's coming in the future. And everyone is already talking about agentic commerce and what it might do. I will be the first to open and honestly agree with you if you were to say that, hey, it's still a very small part of traffic. Agent-driven traffic, agent-driven commerce traffic is still a small part of total traffic, absolutely, but it's growing incredibly quickly. That stat up there, the 1,200% increase in sales, that's now over 6 months dated. And I can only imagine that it's growing even faster. So you have a high growing category of sellers that are coming in, buyers that are coming into your platforms. The thing about these buyers is that they're acting in fundamentally different ways. If you see some of the stats here, 23% lower bounce rate, they're spending more time on the page, and they're converting more often. So you could argue that this is more qualified traffic. And as you start to think, if we go back to that metrics conversation that was happening on before this, you really have to start to think about what are the metrics that are being measured across platforms to show consumer engagement and consumer involvement. If your traffic from agentic commerce agent sources or any Gen AI sources is increasing, then how do you think about what success looks like in that world? Do you need to change how you're measuring all of the KPIs within your company? So growing area, still small. You kind of need to think about it in the whole pie. But one thing remains true. Gone are the days where you have consumers who are okay with you saying, hey, because I purchased this in the past, this is what you have to purchase in the future. Predictions and predictive recommendations have had to evolve. And we've gone into a world where consumers expect you to be able to look at more of their intent, understand a little bit more of the context in which they're shopping, in which they're engaging, to be able to serve them a more nuanced insight. Instead of almost, I would say, recommending them something, you're sort of nudging them on a journey that they're already on. You're like the wind behind the back of a runner, if you will. I'm still in marathon mode from this weekend. No wind. Actually, there was some wind. So the part of that that's important is if there's nothing else that you remember about where agentic commerce or predictions are going and predictive commerce is headed, I would think about it as 3 waves that build. Right now, everyone is in the personalized phase where almost it's the table stakes right for participation. You have to be able to make personalized recommendations to customers. Where we see leaders headed is that middle part, the predictive part. That is where you have the ability to nudge a consumer into the direction that you want them to go. And finally, we'll get to agentic. On the predictive part, and then I'll end with a video, on the predictive part, you essentially have the ability now to not only look at a customer's purchase history, but also look at other parts. You can look at maybe the ring that they're wearing that gives them data on their heart rate and help them understand if they need to be buying specific products for health and wellness. Consumers are willing to allow you to stitch together data from different parts to create something that allows you to serve them better with more specific insight. I will end on this. I showed you Rufus. I'll give you a video. Hopefully there's sound. If not, this is going to be really boring, on what we're doing by taking that paradigm into voice and nudging consumers more as part of their shopping journey.
Wow, wow, look at my style. I know you ain't seen it like this in a while.
Oh, hey there.
So we can just, talk now.
I'm all ears, figuratively speaking.
Cool. Do you know how to manage my kids' schedules?
I noticed a birthday party conflicts with picking up Grandma at the airport. Want me to book her a ride? Billie Eilish is in town soon.
No way.
I can share when tickets are available in your city.
Yes, please.
Got any spring break ideas?
Somewhere not too far. Only if there's a beach and nice weather.
Santa Barbara is great for everyone. I found a restaurant downtown I think you'd like.
What is Santa Barbara known for?
It has great upscale shops and oceanfront dining.
Can you go whale watching?
Absolutely. Want me to book a catamaran tour?
Wow.
What's the next step?
Remove the nut holding the cartridge.
Should I get bangs?
You might only love them for a little while.
You're probably right. Make a slideshow of baby Tina.
Mom. What part am I looking for again?
2-inch washers. Your Uber is 2 minutes away.
For real?
Wait, did someone let the dog out today?
I checked the cameras. And yes, in fact, Mozart was just out.
Wow, wow, look at my style. I know you ain't seen it like this in a while. Wow.
So yeah, I mean, hopefully some of you are already playing with Alexa Plus. That is the paradigm we're headed towards. Of course, that is a marketing video, right? But that is what we're trying to build. And the data, the content is there. We can only do it in pockets where the information is clean enough for us to be able to do it. So Uber, booking an Uber, seeing through the Ring cameras if the dog's out, there's just a closed network that allows for that data to be fed back into that voice interface. But overall, we sort of work at Amazon, at AWS specifically, across the stack and help our customers build solutions in this space. And I would argue work very closely with partners like Amplience to do that, especially in spaces like content. And if there's nothing else, I would just end with saying that part, the data, the content, drives almost everything in customer experience that's personalized. And if that isn't figured out, then the rest of it just doesn't work. With that, thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be around.